All right. Hola, everyone. We are here live in the streets of Puerto Rico in a little town called Isla Verde. And to my left, I got my man right here, my professional buddy by the name of Julius Rivera. Me and Julius actually just got done hosting a camp here in Puerto Rico this past weekend in Villalba, a camp on I believe, the east part of the island, something like that, northeast, somewhere around there. And we brought in about 40, 45 little kids from Puerto Rico who want to learn how to get better at track, all the way from the ages from 10 to about, 15, 16 years old. Taught them how to run track, and there's nobody better on this island who has better block start than this guy right here. PRs of about 10:31, 6:71 in the 60, and he's a two-time national champion and a current professional. So, Julius, man, how you feeling about being on the show today?
Man, I'm excited. This is my first podcast I'm doing, so I'm excited about it. I'm glad it was yours, and this is perfect timing, man. It worked out, so yeah, I'm excited.
100%. And so, Julius, I know you like to watch a lot of podcasts, and you're a real knowledgeable guy. You've been doing track from around 17, 18 years. From your dad's been coaching you since you were little, all the way up until now. So go ahead, man. Talk about your dad and talk about kind of your career, your upbringing. Talk about your career through high school, college, how you got recruited. Kind of give the people your story and your timeline.
Yeah, that's a big question. My dad has been coaching me for my entire track career. I wanted to play basketball, and I stopped growing. And my dad, when I was in middle school, said, "Why don't you try to run track?" I had played baseball before. Actually, funny enough, I had played baseball, and he took me when I was real young to a minor league tryout. And so they took you through a combine and all these different tests to draft and see if you were gonna make this minor league, this little league team.
Right.
And I couldn't hit, I couldn't catch, but they did they timed you from one base to the other, and I was like the fastest guy.
Fastest guy to see.
But so anyway, fast forward, and yeah, my dad had always told me, because he ran track at Pitt. He was a 110 hurdler at Pitt.
Right.
It was something he was passionate about, and he never tried to force me to do it, but he always said, why don't you try track? Why don't you try track? So, 7th grade, I said, okay, cool, I'll go out for the track team, and I really wasn't that good. I wasn't on the 4x1. I didn't win anything, but despite that, I enjoyed it. I liked running track. So, I worked at it. I got better. I had some good coaches in middle school, and my dad joined the staff my 8th grade year, which was my second year. I made some really great friends. I was able to get on to a USATF Junior Olympic Club in Pittsburgh called Future Stars Athletics. Coach Lou Berry, when I was there, was real great. My dad ended up being on that coaching staff as well. And he just followed me kind of through high school and obviously college. I had different coaches, but in the summer when I would come back, or during winter break, he would pick up where my coach left off, and he's been there through all of my accomplishments, my failures, and he's always been very realistic with me in terms of our goals, which is important. He knows me really well, obviously as a person, but as an athlete, and I'm fortunate to have it. I think you see a lot of father-son combos or parent-child combos, and when it comes to athletics, but it's still sort of a rare thing to carry it to a high level. So I'm lucky. It comes with its challenges when you live with your coach or when you are coached by your dad. If I was in trouble at school and then we went to the track, maybe he's still a little bit irritated with me. And so I'm getting yelled at the track, or maybe practice doesn't go well, and you wouldn't talk to your coach that way, So it's always been a balancing act. My mom had to be in the middle of it, but for everything that it's a challenge about it, it's a great thing. It's a rare thing, and I owe all my success I've had to him. And he always says, he just gives me the workouts, and I have to do the work. But I don't think I'd be where I'm at if it wasn't for him. So I'm very fortunate.
100%. They do say that blood is thicker than water, and like you mentioned before, you live with your coach is your dad growing up. At the same time too, if you think about it, maybe he's the reason that you're still going at this thing. Like I said, after college you said, "No, man, I still got more in the tank." And like I said, a two-time national champion right here last year. He was on a 4x1 here in Puerto Rico that almost broke the Puerto Rico record all in general. I believe it was like 39 high, 39 mid. And so talk about your affiliation a little bit with Puerto Rico here. I know your dad obviously is 100% Puerto Rican, your mom is white. and so you're mixed, and you represent Puerto Rico on USTF. And if you were to make an Olympic team one day, you'd be representing Puerto Rico. So talk about your reasoning for wanting to be with Puerto Rico, and how the island's been treating you.
Yeah. So my freshman year of college was the first time. I always sort of knew that representing Puerto Rico was an option, but my freshman year of college was the first year that I really started to run times that would be competitive outside of my conference. My dad took it upon himself to look into it, and I think it was 2014. I was 19. And he looked into it, and it turned out that summer upcoming was the Youth Central American and Caribbean Games. And so the standard mark to get into that competition was 10.68, and I had ran 10.74. So, my dad brought it to my attention, and he said, hey, you're running fast, you're running consistent. This is something you could aim for. And I just thought it sounded amazing. I thought, I had been to Puerto Rico many times, but I had never considered kind of mixing, that part of my background with athletics. And so, man, I was very excited when I even realized that not only it was a possibility, but it was a possibility for me. I worked hard that year. The last meet of the season, my dad said, okay, if you get 10.68, then we'll go, because that's the mark. We're not going to go spend that money on the tickets and everything if you're going to get, if it's not going to be a tangible. He's very realistic with me, which I appreciate. And that meet I ran 10.72, and he said, that's close enough, we'll go. And in the finals of that meet, I ran 10.68, and I qualified. I was able to represent them for the first time. And it's amazing. I love coming here to compete. It's a unique experience, but I feel like, we all need to take advantage of our opportunities to shine and to utilize our gifts. So Puerto Rico has given me the opportunity to use what I think is one of my greatest gifts, and to use that at the highest level. So I appreciate the Puerto Rican Federation for just having a platform that I'm able to stand on, to continue to do something I really love and care about.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you mentioned before, you 10.7 your freshman year of college or high school, I believe. Your dad mentioned to you that this was an opportunity. Hey, next thing you know, you hit this mark, we're in. And so you go, you don't hit the mark exactly, but you're nearby, bam, you're in. And ever since then, you fell in love with the island. And so culture is a big thing here down in Puerto Rico. You know this, you're older than me. You've been to the island many more times than I have. I've only been here twice. You've been here multiple times. And so talk about that a little bit. Something funny that me and him have experienced. Last year, I barely spoke any Spanish. And so walking around this island for the first time, I was kind of a lost cause a little bit. I was trying to walk to people, talk to people. Came back this year, studied a lot. Still am struggling a little bit, but better than last year. But then you have a very specific way of going about things. And like I said, language. There's obviously language barriers with any religion, any culture, or however you want to go about it. But you're very fixated on the English language. And like I said, you grew up speaking English. Your dad grew up speaking Spanish. But your whole entire life, you said, "Hey, I want to be able to just speak Spanish." Or sorry, I want to be able to just speak English anywhere I go. Go ahead and talk about that. About your reasoning for not wanting to speak Spanish. But yeah, just kind of break that down for me a little bit.
Yeah. It's not that I don't want to speak Spanish. I don't want anybody to think that I'm like, you got to speak English. No, I'm not going to speak Spanish. That's not it. That's not it, right? No, first of all, one thing that I always think to myself is everybody in the States wants to be bilingual. There's not anybody that you'll stop on the street in the States that doesn't think being bilingual is, man, a major achievement. Everybody knows that, and I don't have any numbers, but in my experience, there is like the highest number of bilingual people I've ever met in my life in Puerto Rico, and so that's kind of incredible when you think about it, because I've been to a few places in my life, but this is the only place where that really sought after skill is like common. So that's amazing. I don't speak Spanish. It was never something that I learned. I didn't do great in Spanish class in high school. My dad is a fluent speaker. Actually, when I was first learning how to talk, 3, 4, 2 or 3 probably, and I was bilingual. I spoke as much as a 2-year-old talks, right? And when I started going to preschool, actually, I realized everybody in my preschool spoke English. My dad used to always speak Spanish to me in the house, and my mom would speak English. And when I went to preschool, I realized everybody speaks English. And I just started, I don't want to say refusing, but I just started gravitating towards English. Everybody outside of my house, for the first time in my life, when I was going to preschool and I was by myself, without my parents for a day, everybody spoke English. So I wasn't interested in speaking Spanish anymore. And my dad kind of, okay, I want to talk to my son, so I lost it, and I don't speak any Spanish. But yeah, I know there's a lot of people who would like me to speak Spanish, and my abuela included, which I feel guilty about. But when it comes to track, right, the thing is, I'm Puerto Rican whether I speak Spanish or not.
Exactly.
If you were to test my blood, it would say that you're Puerto Rican. It wouldn't say what language I speak.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. It's always going to be somebody who, and they're probably right. You should learn Spanish. It would be a nice thing. Of course it would. But, my goal is always to, when I compete, and I know that when my time goes on World Athletics, it's going to be a Puerto Rican flag next to it, for better or worse. And I want the Puerto Rican flag to be as high as possible on that list.
Exactly.
So if I have the opportunity to do that, that's what I'm going to do. Numbers are numbers, you're right. So
Exactly.
it's not in any language, right? It's just gonna say 10 whatever next to my name with the Puerto Rican flag, 9 whatever with the Puerto Rican flag. And if I could get the Puerto Rican flag as high as possible, if I could come and work with kids and maybe even just give them a little tip, gonna make them a little bit better, that they can go ahead and do it. That's what I want to do. Maybe I'll learn Spanish one day, right? It's obviously an awesome skill to have, and yeah, I wish I could speak Spanish. It hasn't become something yet that I wished I spoke it badly enough to learn.
Yeah.
But man, if I can get the flag as high on that list as possible with my abilities on the track, then hopefully that'll speak for itself. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I like what you said, man. Getting that flag is high on the list, whether you speak Spanish or not. If they take your blood right now, it's not going to say, oh, he speaks 2% Spanish. No, it's going to say you're Puerto Rican. And that's one thing I love about this island, man. I mean, you're born here. You're born in the United States. You're born in Africa. And, anywhere in the world where you're born, if you're Puerto Rican, man, us Puerto Ricans, we like to stick together. Anytime you see a Puerto Rican in the streets, or anytime you talk to somebody and you're like, hey, what are you? And they're like, I'm Puerto Rican. Like, there's like that instant connection, right? I mean, we were talking to a guy yesterday. What was his name again? At the beach. He was in your 4x1.
Oh, Eloy Benitez.
Eloy.
Shout out Eloy Benitez. Man, let me say something about Eloy real quick.
Yeah.
When Niko mentioned we were doing this 4x1 last year, and it was months and months of trying to coordinate who's going to be on it, who's in the States, who's in Puerto Rico, how can we get handoffs, who's you going to come or whatever. And we needed another guy. We had 3 guys, man, who's going to be this 4th person. And Eloy had just won the Huskers championships in the 100 meters, and we said, we want him. This guy's obviously a competitor, and man, Eloy doesn't speak any English. I don't speak any Spanish, but what's funny is, man, we get along so well. It's funny you mentioned that. I wasn't even thinking that, but yeah, we get along so well, and it's like, hey, when we pass that baton, man, that's a silent handoff.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
That's brotherly right there, man.
So,
that's love.
yeah, but he like you said, yeah, we saw him at the beach the other day, so it was cool, man. He was using the translator, but we were playing pool, we were hanging out, and that it is what it is. It's about being here and doing the best for Puerto Rico. That's all.
Exactly, 100%. One thing I kind of want to close out this podcast with. I mean, you were a coach at Pitt for a little bit. I mean,
I seen you for 2 years.
Sorry, I seen you for 2 years. My fault. And you did mention before, after your college career was over with, the next closest thing that got you that feeling of competing again was being a coach. And as you mentioned before, giving somebody advice to the point to, okay, let's say it takes off like a second off the time, or 0.5, really whatever the case may be, of you having that impact just because of your influence being there as a coach. I mean, you've seen both sides of the coin. I mean, you've been the athlete, and at the same time, you're able to be a coach. And even today, you're still even an athlete too. Your dad's still coaching you and things like that. So if had any advice for anybody out there, whether it's sprint tips, I mean, you ran a 10:31 and or even 10:2, you're knocking on the door of that. If you got to give advice for any sprinter sprinters out there, anybody who wants to excel, what's some knowledge that you can get to somebody? You know, it could be training, it could be racing competition, it could be mindset. You know, with all of your experience, what advice do you have for somebody out there?
Yeah, so I started coaching really because I had a void when I had taken a year off. I came back. I had an injury. I had a Jones fracture. I broke my foot. And so, I had that void. And it was like I had never thought I wanted to be a coach, but it became something that I wanted to do because it was the next best thing. And I ended up really, really enjoying it almost. Not coincidentally, but it was something that I kind of stumbled into that really ended up being very, very rewarding for me. But if I had any advice for sprinters or specifically sprinters, I don't know if my advice applies to everybody. But if I had any advice for college sprinters, it would be it would be that you see all of these guys running at a high level and you think, man, how am I ever going to do that? How can I get on a pro club? How can I take this to the next level? Do I even want to do it? And what I had to realize was that everybody has to kind of go through the same path to get there. I mean, obviously there's guys, listen, if you run 9.8 in high school, if you run 9.8 in college, it's a different story. But if you're 10.3, 10.2, 10.4-ish, everybody is working. Everybody works a job. Everybody, has to find facilities. Everybody struggles with time. I was talking to a great teammate of mine, Dre Carr from IUP, and man, he broke my records at IUP actually. And when he did it, I told him, everybody says records are meant to be broken. I wanted my records to stay there forever. I wanted my records to stay there forever, but I told him if somebody had to break my record, I'm glad it was you. And he called me the one day. He was like, man, how I'm out of school. How can I how can I take this to this next level? And my advice was, listen, it looks like from the outside in, nobody is trying to figure out how am I going to have enough money to support this? How am I going to get money from this? How am I going to have a job? How am I going to train? Who's going to coach me? Everybody thinks that they're the only ones dealing with that, but anybody who's trying to break through to that next level has to figure those things out. And so my advice was, you have to find a job that's going to feed your training. Your training, you have to find some way to get your training to feed your job. So I was fortunate enough to get hooked up with a company, Gingerbread Man Running, when I was in school. And I had a great relationship with them, with the owner, with some of the people I got to work with. And, it worked out that I was able to manage a new location in Pittsburgh where I live. And that's a great fit because I bring credibility because of what I do on the track. But the job helps me with what I do on the track because I get to work with runners. I get to work with shoes. All day I am doing something that feeds the other. So a lot of people think I have to have a job and pull from my job to feed what I'm doing on the track. I did that for a little bit, and it made it really difficult for me because then not only was I lining up and I had the pressure of I have to win this, I have to run fast, or else nobody is going to want to have me on their team. That's pressure enough. But it was also, and if I don't run fast, everybody's going to look. Maybe this is me projecting, but I'm thinking everybody's going to look, man, why don't you get a real job? Why don't you do this? Why are you investing all of your time into track? Because I was just pulling from one side of my life to feed this. Whereas as soon as I realized, no, it has to all work together and come together, that now what I do on the track gives me credibility at my job. And what I do at my job gives me the ability and the time to do what I love to do on the track, and they work together. So you have to find balance in your life, I guess is my long-winded way of saying, to find balance in your life, to not just, I'm a sprinter, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or to give up what you love because maybe what looks like the right thing for you to do at the time is forget it and just work. But if you want to go to the next level, if you're 10.3 low, if you're 6.7 low, That's about what it's going to take to get into these pro meets. That's a lot of the marks. A lot of guys are looking at, bringing those type of people over to continue, find balance. And you're not going to overload. You're not going to overstress yourself with the other half of your life all riding on a race. You have to unload the finances, unload relationships, unload, your social life. Take that off of your plate when you're at the track. And the only way you can do that is by having a healthy, the only way you can do that is by having a healthy, off the track life, having a job that you like, finding time and balance, and creating a system for yourself where each thing is feeding the other.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, a lot of people out there too. I mean, they give up on their goals so fast. I mean, let's say they go through college, right, and they set out these crazy high standard goals for themselves, and let's say they don't hit it yet. Maybe you just didn't have the right coaching staff. Maybe you had an unfortunate injury, or maybe your body just isn't ready yet. Maybe your peak is around 29, 30, 31 years old. I mean, the older you get, the more your body matures, and the more you understand your body when you're running. I mean, like the difference between when I was 15 versus now I'm about to be 21. I mean, is detrimental. I mean, I'm almost 20 seconds faster than I was when I was 15 years old, and so there's so many different variations of ways to look at it too. I mean, your example, I mean, you were like a 10-7 guy, 10-8 guy, barely breaking 11s out of high school. Now you're 10-3, knocking on the door of 10-2. I mean, you're knocking on the door of even being qualified for the Olympics if you obviously break the times, in the 60 or the 100. I mean, you never know what life has to offer. And I like what you mentioned before too. I mean, having a little bit of balance. If you put too much eggs in one basket of the financial part of it, you're gonna be miserable at your job and always thinking to yourself, man, what if I would have tried harder at track? And then there's the flip to that. If you put everything you have in the track and then don't even give a glance at your finances, you're gonna be in a hole before you know it. And you're like, man, like now I gotta get a job. I'm behind financial. I'm in debt. Having that right balance. And I think you hit it right in the head of having that balance. I mean, you're doing great right now. You have a bright future ahead of you, and then hopefully me and you can be on the same Puerto Rico team one day. That's my goal. Run fast enough times for that. But Julius, man, if you have any closing remarks or closing statements for anybody out there watching, man, go ahead and say them now. So I'll close up the pod. You got anything?
No, I mean, this was cool, man. No, that's it. I'm trying to think of something clever to say.
The closing remarks.
I would like to have something to leave people with where they're like, wow.
What do they think when they think about Julius Rivera?
Man, what do they think when they think of Julius Rivera?
Exactly. That's the question. That'll be the thumbnail, the caption.
I don't know.
Come on, Batman, give me something.
I hope they think I'm a nice guy.
That's all you got. Hope they think I'm a nice guy.
I hope they think I'm a nice guy. What can I say?
Balance, I don't know if you guys noticed. I mean, this dude has off whites on right now. He's got the Michael Jackson shirt. He's got 2 bolt symbols right here. So I mean, other than having a job,
let me say something about these. You mentioned these.
Yeah.
People ask me why I wear these.
Why too?
If they mean anything.
Yeah.
So they actually do have a meaning. I got this first one because I'm fast.
Yeah.
And I got this second one because I got faster.
Hey, that's it right there. 2 times speed. 2 times speed, baby. Hey, Julius, I appreciate you being on this pod, man. Stay tuned for more episodes just like this. And we're tapping out of here from, Isla Verde, Puerto Rico. Adios.